Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Okay, people are just pouring into the webinar, but we'll get started here in just a second. If you are feeling slightly bored for the millisecond that it takes us to start, please share in chat where you're calling in from. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leadership and Change Management Webinar Pre-Conference. This is a pre-conference webinar for the AI+IM Global Summit. My name is Tori Miller-Liu. I'm the President and CEO of the Association for Intelligent Information Management. And AIM is so proud to be hosting the inaugural summit in Atlanta, March 31st through April 2nd. If you would like to register or learn more about the event, please use this QR code here on the screen and you'll find out a whole bunch of cool details about the event, including Candace's speaker bio. So we'll keep moving on here. For today, what we're really trying to do is give you a sense of what you're going to encounter at the summit and what the event's all about. We are also going to dive deep into one of the specific learning pathways that we have at the event. It's called the Leadership and Change Management Pathway. And we're going to talk about how that pathway is going to address some of the challenges that you might be encountering in the course of your work. And we're also going to share a few tips about how you can get the most out of your summit experience. Now, I should add, I know there might be some folks on the call today that aren't actually planning on going to the summit, and that's totally okay. I think you'll still find value in today's conversation because we're also going to be having kind of a high-level conversation about what leadership and change management means in today's information management environment. So I'm sure you will still find value in the conversation. And I do hope that it actually prompts you to either attend this year or make sure that you come and join us next year in 2026. So just a few reminders. If you have any questions, please put that in the Q&A feature in Zoom. You'll find that little icon in the command bar. And if you want to share anything in chat, please do that as well. This is going to be a really fast-paced 45-minute conversation, but we will try to get to as many questions as possible. Closed captions are available and they can be turned on through your Zoom tool panel as well. And please note that we are recording today's conversation. We're going to provide a recording of this conversation to everyone who registered, and it's also going to be available on demand on YouTube. After the webinar is complete, please take just 3 minutes to respond to our feedback survey. We really value that feedback and it helps us improve virtual programs throughout the year. All right, so without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker today, our guest panelist, if you will. I am joined today by Candace McCabe. Candace has over 20 years of experience in system analysis, design, and enterprise architecture, and she is a recognized leader in information privacy, governance, and innovative problem solving. As the founder of Mindful Wellness Mentoring, she empowers professional women to build lives of passion and purpose through holistic growth and mindset coaching, while partnering with corporations to establish employee resource groups and training programs. Her mission is to inspire and support women to achieve their full potential and lead fulfilling lives. This is so appropriate for Women's History Month, by the way, Candace. She is also currently the Senior Solution Architect at Walmart and one of our keynote capstone speakers at the summit. Welcome, Candace.
Thanks. And actually, I'm not sure what my title is, so I didn't update that in my bio.
Did it change again?
Yeah.
No.
So honestly, I hadn't updated it. My last title was Principal Software Developer, which Tori and I have laughed about a couple of times because I'm not a software developer. That was just the job family I got rolled into, but I just got reorged again. So we'll see what they come up with, but it'll be some sort of architect, I assume. We'll see.
I feel like they're playing Mad Libs with your title. It's like, I think the word you're looking for is information governance or information management, but we haven't
Yeah,
landed
no, that's not going to happen. Because they don't have those titles in global tech. So
on
I have to have a
that.
tech-based
Well,
title.
we also need to update your bio because I forgot to mention you are a member of the AIM Company of Fellows and a director at large on our board of directors. So I think we need to update your bio on our event site as well.
Yeah, I probably should just send over some text.
Yeah. But with those credentials, I think you're also really well equipped to talk about the summit itself because you were intimately involved in the designing of this new program. So we've hosted the AIM conference for years, and this year the board made a very strategic decision to redesign the event to meet the needs of information management practitioners in the AI era. And think it's worth noting for folks that if you've been to the conference before, don't kind of forget everything that we used to do because it's such a different event this year. We have hands-on workshops, we have these interactive sessions, uh, thought-provoking keynotes, certainly networking, but we also have cohort-based learning where we're grouping folks based off their industry in these smaller cohorts so that they can actually share knowledge and also offer peer support during the event itself. And all of this is to explore the intersection of information management and AI in today's world and the future world. So, Candace, anything that you want to kind of talk about just from like the design perspective, maybe something you're excited about with the design of the event?
Honestly, I think the thing that's most exciting to me that I'm looking forward to really seeing in practice is the cohort-based learning.
Ooh.
Um, I, I think that a lot of us in this space, and even beyond that, I think that a lot of times when people see the term networking, they get very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, we have a lot of folks that aren't naturally extroverted. It takes a lot of energy. And so sometimes when you go to a big conference, if you're like the only one from your organization that's going, it's overwhelming because you're like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know anyone here. And you really have to step out of your comfort zone in those networking things to try to find someone that you feel some sort of affinity with. But the cohort-based learning really kind of gives you like an automatic friend group. It's your
That's a nice
bestie
way to put
set
it.
for
Yeah.
for the duration of the conference. And I know there are going to be, relationships that are built that are going to last much beyond that. But just the ability to kind of download after you go to some sessions and hear what other people heard that maybe you didn't hear and strike up additional conversations. I think that's going to be the coolest thing that happens overall.
I think I agree with you on that one. Plus, the when you have cohorts like that and that peer group, it almost makes the education that you hear at the event a little more practical, right? Because I can sit in a session about agentic AI, and then I can go meet with Candace and be like, wait, so how do I actually apply that to my organization? Like, what are you going to do at Walmart with that information? And you get like these really great ideas. So yeah, I'm very excited about the cohorts. And just the pathway in general. And just to shift gears for a second, so people know, the leadership and change management pathway is one of four pathways. Now, if you're going to the summit, you do not have to stick with a single pathway. This isn't like picking your major in college. You can actually bounce from pathway to pathway. It's just a way for us to categorize some of the sessions that you're going to experience. Um, and so, Candace, we really want to focus today on the change management pathway and getting people prepared for the content that they're going to experience, but also give folks sort of a baseline understanding. Because one of the things that we did deliberately at the summit this year is there's not what I would call like a ton of 101 sessions where, it's going to be Candace saying, like, this is what change management is. So, with these pre-con webinars, we really want to give people a shared understanding so they're able to come into the conversation and get the most out of it and have a really productive experience. So, Candace, with that, I'm going to immediately put you on the spot, and this is
Okay.
literally just me peppering Candace with like as many questions as I can. And if I can stump you, I think I'd get like a prize of some kind. Maybe like I don't
Well,
know.
what? Okay, so then
You'll
that
buy
means
me a
there's a
beer in
prize for.
Atlanta.
Okay, but that means you're buying me one if you don't stump me, right?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay,
Okay.
fair enough.
All right. So we'll start basic. How do you define change management?
Um, so starting with, I I think you kind of have to walk back a little bit to really kind of get a picture of what change management is. There are textbook definitions for what organizational change management is, and it's a large practice in the world today. And so I thought about it. I was like, well, I can just go Google this because I knew you were going to ask this question. How do you define this? And I was like, I think it's more important to paint a picture. And the reality of that picture is that I can talk specifically to my experience, which is that we have, and I think I speak for all of us, we've all been in the situation where either the company that we work for or our church or whoever, someone rolls out something and says, this is the way we're going to do this from now on. And you weren't necessarily a part of that process. You probably didn't get any training or explanation of why that was happening or what value that brought. You're just handed something and said and told, here, move forward with this. And there's a natural human resistance to that. And change management is really anticipating that resistance
Hmm.
and in trying to ensure that change is not just rolled out, it's fully adopted and that there's full engagement in it. And the way you do that is really to include people early in the process, to ensure that, all the stakeholders' needs are being met and that people have a voice in the definition of the way change occurs. And then that they get the tools that they need in order to adopt and engage and be successful. So it's all of those things from communications to planning to rollout to training, and then having someone walk you through and make sure that it's working. And then the continuous feedback loop. To me, that's what change management is. And I can say that, and maybe it's just a wisdom from years sort of statement. I think that there's a natural bent to people that are in this industry. We know what the right thing to do is, and we just assume that other people will understand that it's the right thing to do and they'll want to do it. But more and more as you age, um this girl, you come to realize that it's like it doesn't matter if it's the right thing to do if it doesn't make sense to them in their space. And
Hmm.
so it's helping people understand the value to them. I was in a meeting a few days ago and we were talking about a change that we needed to put in, and somebody said, well, this is the value that it provides to the organization. And I'm like, absolutely, that's a value. However, if I'm the person sitting in the chair, what have you done for me lately? What value is it bringing me into my chair? Because I can comply without doing a job well, but if
Yeah.
there's value to me, I can fully embrace it and do it well. And that provides a larger enterprise value.
Oh, and I love the way you describe it as not being it's not a static thing. It's not an endpoint, that it really is a journey. So, uh, such a great definition. Why are we talking about it at an event for information management practitioners and leaders?
I think for all of the reasons I just said, I think that we in this industry are really focused on doing the right things, right? We're the people that are tasked with, driving policies and standards and ensuring that those are met. And those are all really good things. And there's great outcomes for that. If you're looking at records management, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm complying with regulations or policies. I'm reducing my e-discovery costs. I'm doing all of these things. But that doesn't necessarily translate to the person in the seat who's doing the work, who has to think about that. And the more that we can get in front of that and partner with the people who are doing the work on a day-to-day basis. So it's, Tori, I need you to manage your email versus, Tori, here's the value you get if you do the things that we've outlined need to be done with email. And how does that work for you? And how can I make that path easier? We do a much better job and can get much better value out of the data that we have if we actually focus on that change management aspect. And I think it's a shift in our mindset. And I think it's an important shift, especially with the sheer volume of stuff that we need to deal with, especially in an AI world.
I really like that. And I love how you paint this picture of uh, from your interpretation, would it be accurate to say data is really only as good as the people that use it, right?
Absolutely.
And information
It-
management systems, the same thing. Like it's useless if no one touches it, no one uses it.
okay, so again, I'm gonna age myself, and I'm okay with that. Once upon a time, it was commonly there was the GIGO thing, right? So it was garbage in, garbage out. And it's because in any computer-based system, if you had poor input, you got poor output.
Yeah.
And the thing with AI is it's just extremely large quantities of garbage. Um, we've just, exponentially exacerbated the potential for garbage out. And so we've got to do a much better job of making sure it's not garbage going in. And people in this space are the perfect people to be able to help in that situation, because we do have the history and the skills and the knowledge to go and ensure that the data, whether that's structured or unstructured or semi-structured or whatever it is, that it's well governed and it's high quality and it's got good integrity and all of those sorts of things that we rely on to ensure that the outputs from the AI systems are good.
So and that's an interesting segue. So I agree with you that information management practitioners have this really unique skill set that can make AI implementation successful. But I have to admit, I had not previously, until just now, connected the dots around not only do we understand like how to successfully and responsibly implement these systems, but we could also help with the adoption of the system. So are you seeing that? Can IM leaders play a role in adoption as well?
I I think we're seeing more of it. I think that this is a turning point for people in this space. I think we have a long history of doing the right things and having a lot of knowledge and insight. And I think there are more and more people sort of stepping up and saying, "Hey, I have this, and I can help. I can help us drive this forward in this way." And so I don't know that I've seen a lot thus far, but I think it's a trend that we can all get in front of and participate in and help grow.
So let me ask you another AI related question. I've heard from you and many others that information management leaders are getting pulled into AI implementation projects. Um, it, with that, like I feel like we're kind of walking this interesting line between helping advance AI, but also recognizing that AI does have the potential to replace some of our historical work in the information management space. So can you talk about that a little bit, like how we navigate this kind of weird ethical landscape?
Um, okay, so before this conversation started, right? When we were just chatting beforehand, I mentioned that I took this artificial intelligence class in college, and we're talking 1993, right? So this isn't a new thing, and all of the books at that time were about the AI systems taking over the world and replacing all the humans. The thing is that I see for the most part, yes, AI is able to make repetitive decisions much more quickly. It's also able to come up with some really cool insights, but you have to have a human in that loop, or else those decisions can go off rail, and you don't really know what you're going to get out of these things. To me, for the most part, the robotics, the AI, the machine learning, whatever labels you're going to put on it, because I honestly think we call everything AI today, whether it truly fits that moniker or not. Um, it's going to take a lot of those lower value, repetitive sorts of thoughts and tasks away so that we as humans can get much more creative. And we can allow those systems to create insights and then take a look at them and say, oh, that's a really cool thing. How do I use that in a different way? Because I think that's the value that humans have that they keep saying they're going to, have parity at some point, but that time horizon keeps getting pushed out, right? So
And
yeah, I think that people that are in this space, yes, some of the work will get offloaded to some sort of automation processing. I think it frees us up to do way more fun things and really provide more value.
what's your like short list of what the fun things are to give us something to look forward to?
Um, and maybe it's the geek in me, right? But I like the strategic work. And that's the part that AI is not, at least in today's world, good at,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I can use whatever machine learning, AI agents, co-pilots, whatever, to take care of the tactical things, like for me, I'm great at this, right? I like to speak. I hate putting together PowerPoint presentations. I would rather pluck my eyes out than do that work. Those tools can do great things with that. I can give it, I can sit there and have a conversation with, you know, a Gen AI system. And I will say I tend to use Google. It just that's me. Um, but I can say, okay, I would like to communicate these thoughts. I need something that looks good, that's engaging, and let that work happen. So I can offload the things that don't sort of fill my soul.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, to me, it's a lot more of strategy development and then using the AI to lay out the tactical plans and and build out the operations and those sorts of things that are just they're not quite as fun and exciting.
I'm with you because like if you're talking about metadata, I think it's a lot more fun to come up with the strategy for how we're going to replace or fix missing metadata as opposed to actually doing it. So,
Absolutely. Or if you're doing a SharePoint migration and instead of moving everything, you actually go through and use AI to do analysis and figure out
yeah.
what should move because it's automatically classifying things with metadata and that sort of thing, and you're doing archival and purging and all of those sorts of tasks.
It sounds like you have intimate knowledge with this experience.
I was actually kind of calling you out, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Post Summit AIM is trying to do a data migration.
And to be fair and to be honest, um, we're all that way about our own stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we're great at okay, our organization with the data that we have about our customers or our members or whoever it is, these are the processes we're going to put in place and we're going to do all of this stuff really well, but our internal stuff is just maybe not quite so good.
Not quite so good. It's like the stuff in your attic. Like no one sees it. Does it really need to be that tidy? And you never know when you
Precisely.
need that old crock pot from the 1970s.
Uh, you're hitting way too close to home at this
I
point.
know. Well, in my quick personal story, my mom is one of those parents that every time she comes to visit brings some like strange artifact from my childhood. Like, and I don't think anyone needs like, a 35-year-old doll that probably has like bugs on it, but
Um, yeah, we've been clearing out my mother's house because we've moved her to assisted living, and the things that I have found, I, and the things that we have found that we've had to deal with, my kids are looking at me, swearing to me that I will deal with all of my hoarding and all of my stuff long before we get to this point.
I think it's so funny in our personal lives that we can kind of like Marie Kondo things. But when I think about like AIM's actual files, I'm like, oh, like I don't know, we might need that like brochure, that research paper from 2010. You never know, Candace. I might need it.
Yeah, but if
Uh,
could you find it if you needed to? And the answer is no.
no, no, not without like 30 minutes of searching. No. So shifting gears a little bit, because one of the things that I noted in this pathway is there are there are some terms that I think are worth just defining. So maybe we can do like kind of a quick spitfire thing here. But job crafting was one of the terms that David Robinson's doing a session on job crafting. What's your definition of job crafting so we kind of understand that session a little better?
Um, so to me, this is one of those exercises that if you've had a long career, I feel like you've probably done at some point or multiple points. And it's where you look at and for those of you who are research geeks, which is probably most of the audience, right? Look up the term ikigai, that's Ikigai. And it's a concept that I think Toyota came up with years and years ago. But essentially what you're doing is you're looking at, what are my skills? What do I like to do? And what does the world need?
Hmm.
And so you kind of, job crafting is literally that. It's, what do I want to do and why is it important to either the organization that I'm in today or the organization that I want to be in tomorrow? And really laying that out. And my own personal experience with this has happened multiple times. So Tori knows, lots of you in the audience, because I'm seeing people comment and I'm like, oh yep, know them, know them, know them. um my background is tech. I was a I was in structured data. I did data architecture, data management, and I got handed this information lifecycle management thing as a small portion of my enterprise architecture job. And from there, said, okay, we're not doing a good job of this. And if you want me to do it, here's what I need in order to do that job and do it well. And so I completely changed my job description. So I, developed the information governance practice and became the senior solution architect for information governance. And I built my job description, I put together my business plan. And so if we're saying that today is an inflection point where AI is changing jobs, then why not craft what you want to be? So look at, what do you like? Um, Look at what your skills are and what does the world need, and figure out sort of that, Venn diagram of those things and go, that's my sweet spot. I am unique and I'm going to go write up my job description and make it happen.
Love that. I wrote that down, by the way. Susan and John were joking about things we should put on AIM t-shirts, and I kind of
Right.
think we should put craft what you want to be. It's so appropriate for the AI era. All right, another term for you, communities of practice. Jesse Wilkins is doing a session on communities of practice. What does that mean in the information management space?
So to me, when you talk about communities of practice, it's it's a shared space of people who are doing similar work, although it may be somewhat different. Um, and I see it a lot of times in like programs, right? So if my tech background's going to show up, right? Um, if you're developing a new application, you're going to bring in, people that are user experience and design type folks. You're going to bring in the developers, you're going to bring in the data management people, you're going to bring in, the infrastructure folks, a- and they're going to work together on a common thing. But communities of practice really are when those people start talking to each other. And they're working on different things and say, "Oh, I have the coolest thing that I'm doing, but I don't really know how to do this." And so building those those practices where it's like we have some affinity, we're doing some similar things, but I can learn from you, you can learn from me, and together we can do better things.
Well, and I feel like that's so appropriate when you're talking about change management. I mean, talk about like securing adoption. If you can build a group of friends that can help you figure out like how do I get more out of this? How do I innovate around this? That's pretty nifty. Okay, what about inclusive leadership? This is a session that Jeff Lewis is doing, who's a fellow of yours.
Yes, a fellow. Um, I think to me, when you talk about being inclusive and being a leader, I think it's very it- leadership is very different than management. I'll start there because you don't have to be in a managerial role or a hierarchical position that puts you above someone to be a leader. A leader is someone who inspires you to do something.
Hmm.
And leaders aren't good leaders if they're not taking into account the people that they're working with and the diversity of thought that they have. And a lot of that comes from diversity of experience. And so we were talking earlier about women in tech and A, how few of us there are, and B, how women tend to exit tech at a much higher pace than any other job field. Um, and it's because a lot of times you look at project team in tech and it's all men.
Mhm.
They all look the same, which is why some of us use applications on our phones or our PCs or whatever and go, who designed this? This is not how I do things. Why would you do that this way? Um, and and I work for the world's largest retailer, right? If if we had only, let's say, white males designing all of our software, it wouldn't work for the vast majority of the retail shoppers in the world, right? So you've got to have a range of experiences and people included in driving forward with strategy, with design, with you know creative solutioning, whatever that is. And so you need a variety of voices, and whether that's you know some of the obvious terms that people always use, right, are gender and race and those sorts of things. But you need age variation. How's this going to work for the 54-year-old woman versus my 25-year-old daughter? Or you need just a variety of people with a variety of different thoughts, their backgrounds, what they've studied in life, whatever those things are. That gives a much better end product to whatever you're trying to do, whether that's you know a volunteer org, or it's your job, whatever that is. Everything is better when we include more diverse voices. And inclusive leadership is ensuring that all of those people have a seat at the table and that they have a voice. And quite frankly, as a leader, it's your job to ensure that they are included. So it may be, hey, Tori, what are your thoughts?
Mhm.
You're being very quiet. You know, I know. What do you think? And even if that's, hey, Tori, we're going to meet after because you're not comfortable speaking in a large group,
Yeah.
but still taking that voice into consideration.
And I feel like there's so many applications for that mindset in the information management space because if our job is to contextualize and curate data, it really behooves us to come at that from a very inclusive standpoint because data the diversity of our data. Like the people that are recorded in our records is diverse themselves, right?
Well, and the people that are going to be using systems or processes may be very different than the owner of the system or process, and you have to ensure that those users are involved in that. So who's your, who's your typical actor? Go talk
Mhm.
to them, include them, which again leads into the whole change management thing, because if you've purpose built something for the people who need it the most, they're going to be much more ready to adopt and engage with whatever that process is and continue to improve it.
Yeah. And it always comes down to empathy, right? Whether you call it inclusiveness or whatever, it's about
Right.
empathy. Can you empathize with someone that you can actually contextualize and affect change?
And quite frankly, you can attempt to have empathy, but sometimes you just need to go talk to that person.
Hmm.
It's that walk a mile in their shoes kind of thing.
Yeah, and be humble enough to understand that you don't necessarily, like, I can't
You
understand
don't
your
get it.
perspective. Yeah.
Right. So what is your perspective, and you tell me, because
Yeah.
like I can go do your job and maybe I'll gain some level of empathy, but unless I'm actually talking to you and hear how that affects you, and what your background is and how you got there and where you want to go next, I can't fully empathize.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, so let's shift gears for a moment, and talk about how you're going to really get the most out of this event by using it to solve some of your challenges. So, how are for this pathway in particular, how might you use it to solve some of the challenges you're currently encountering at Walmart?
I think so. Again, I'm getting a new job title, which I will likely be crafting myself, because I'm unicorning here.
Well,
Um,
you should go to that job crafting session.
right? Um, but more than that, the work that I'm doing right now is actually internal work.
Hmm.
Um, so I do work in global tech. I am working on an information governance and information management program within global tech for just tech data. So it's that whole do as I say and not as I do. My don't look behind the curtain. I do this great job out here, but all this stuff back here is kind of a mess, right? So change management is a huge portion of what we're relying on. So, honestly, we're building out, the work breakdown structure right now. We're laying out the value map. We're doing all of that sort of upfront program work, and being very strategic in ensuring that we have things like process reengineering, process decomposition, um, you know, process governance, in addition to, all of the data governance pieces with data quality and data integrity and data stewardship. And so we're laying all of that out and saying at each line, what's the OCM on this like? How do we engage? How do we get the stakeholders involved? Who are those stakeholders? How do we ensure that this works for them so that they become champions? And then, and taking it beyond training.
Mhm.
We're not going to just develop something, roll it out, hand them training, and say, go forth, do as we said. So I'm looking forward to a lot of these conversations,
Yeah.
um, that happen, just to talk about other people who have been through similar, and what some really cool change management kind of concepts and ideas are, and things that have worked and things that haven't. I mean, we all learn very well from what not to do.
Yeah. And I think it's such a tall order before you as well, because there's something really intimidating about designing an information management program for IT folks who regularly deal in information management and data. And yeah, it's like you never you never really want to design a product for like the experts because they feel like they're the experts.
It's it's like meta something.
Yeah. Not sponsored by Meta.
No, nope, that's a different beast.
Um, so when you're approaching your experience at the event, how are you planning out who to meet with? Like, whether it's other attendees or it's sponsors, and you're thinking of how am I going to like learn something that I can help and bring back to solve my problem that I'm encountering? How are you planning out how to approach the event and who to meet with?
So I will say that at a high level, I'm going to take the same approach that I have taken at every conference or event that I have ever been to. And this takes a bit of bravery on the participants' part. I'm going to introduce myself to every speaker that stands up that I think is cool. They said something interesting. And I know from my experience in all of the events that I have spoken at, I absolutely love when a session attendee comes up to me and says, "Hi, I'm Candace. I I don't really necessarily have any more questions right now, but would it be okay if I connected with you, whether that's through the AIM community or LinkedIn or whatever? I would love to just build a relationship with you. And do you mind if I add you to my phone friend list?"
I really
And
like
and 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 that has honestly driven an awful lot of the amazing relationships that I have in my career. And like I said, as a speaker, I always want people to come up to me. You know, I like it when people and I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a whole lot easier to introduce yourself to one person than it is to a group. Those people will often introduce you to other people. You'll continue to build that network out. Um, and and that's my approach always heading into a conference or event is who can I meet? Who can I engage with? And I think that's why I think the cohort thing is really cool, is because you're going to have sort of a captive audience of people that you're going to be able to get to know. But those
that.
people are also going to be able to introduce you to other people, other ideas, other concepts, and help expand that.
So, and I also think, in my experience, I've actually leveraged sponsors for a little bit of that too, because speakers and sponsors can kind of play that concierge role for you. And
Yep.
this year, we also have cohort leaders, our facilitators. So
Yes.
folks can turn to their facilitators and say, look, here's the problem I'm trying to solve, or the thing I am trying to learn. Can you introduce me to folks who can help do this? And even if the sponsor or facilitator can't answer it themselves, they're always more than happy to introduce you to someone who can, right?
Well, and I guess I should throw out you should also introduce yourself to fellows and to the
Yes.
board, and we're happy to do that role as well.
Yes. Yeah. And folks can always ask, if you can find me in the hallway, stop me and I'll introduce you to folks too. I'll be the short one.
No one can stop you. You have 15 things on your next agenda.
I'll always help though. All right. So Candace, last question for you. Any other advice for people who are coming to Atlanta, how they can get the most out of this event?
I would say prepare, but prepare to pivot.
Ooh,
So
new t-shirt.
l- um so look ahead, right? So literally I pulled up the pathway this morning and I'm looking and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Yeah, and that's really cool. Some of that I will get to Atlanta And then I'm going to have an idea in my head of what session I'm going to go to next and what I want to do. But I may meet somebody really cool in the session before, and they're going to something different, and I want to spend a little more time with them. And so I may pivot. And I think you need to be prepared to do that as well. So have an idea of what it is primarily that you're looking to solve for or to learn. Kind of set that high level objective of what that is, and go with an idea of that in your head, and then look at where you're going to go, who you're going to talk to, what additional learnings you may need afterward in order to do that. But be prepared for somebody to or something to completely challenge what you thought you needed to be learning or doing, because you just might come up with something completely new and different.
That is such fantastic advice and a really fantastic new t-shirt. Thank you for that idea. Um,
How many
so
t-shirts have I given you now?
At least three. Yeah, I should start giving you like commission on these. So I put in the hyperlink for the event page if folks do want to learn more. If you are attending the event, Candace did mention this, but I encourage you to download the mobile app and start communicating with your cohort and also start planning what sessions you're going to attend. I think folks are also in the app already sharing pet pictures and ideas.
We
Uh,
always start with pet
I
pictures.
found out that we've been doing that for like nearly 20 years too. Apparently, it's
Yeah,
a tradition of, yeah. So share your pet photos. And then also, folks are sharing tips for Atlanta as well. So you can start planning your evenings. But Candace, thank you for joining us today. And thank you to everyone who attended. I hope to see many of you in Atlanta. And I hope you have a good rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
thanks.